Hey guys, Trapper here. Welcome back to part 2 of our interview with Pattie Money, Interim Chief People Officer at Twilio. Now, if you haven't checked out the first interview, you should definitely go back and listen to it. We talk about a lot of good stuff in terms of leadership and culture. In the second interview, we talk about the impact that the COVID-19 pandemic has had on the workforce and on leadership, and how it's really humanized the workforce. I don't want to downplay how horrible this virus is and all of the bad things that it's doing and leading to death and sadness and economic disaster. But I think it's important that we look for lessons learned in the good and the bad. And some of the lessons learned that I'm taking away on this is the importance of community and is the importance of communication. You know, we've talked for years about being vulnerable at work and bringing your whole self to work. But not many of us have done that, and COVID-19 has really forced our hand on that. It's not so much seeking work-life balance as it is seeking work-life harmony. Some of the really cool points that Pattie touches on is how leaders have an obligation to use what we're learning during this and how to bring it into the next phase of our organizations. Some of those are how to work together and how to stay real. And it's important to enable those to continue to flourish as we return to business as usual. And one super cool quote from Franny that I really dug was that you're only acquaintances with someone until you've been through something together, and then you're friends. And I think that's especially true now because people we've worked with for years together, we may not have known the whole person, but now we're getting a glimpse of that. There's a lot of stress being put on people. You know, if you're not used to working from home or if your group doesn't collaborate well remotely, that can be a big obstacle to overcome. And then layer on top of that, children. So not only are you trying to do your job, but you've got kids you need to help with online schooling as well. It's probably one of my favorite interviews when it comes to just being real and realizing that while we're all in the business of technology, we're all people and we're all humans. And if COVID-19 has done anything good, I think it's really humanized the workforce. Now, before we get into the interview, I want to thank Franny Matthews for being a stellar co-host. I really enjoy doing these interviews with her. She brings such an incredible energy and probing questions that I really enjoy hearing the answers to. So big thanks to Franny and to the Colorado Technology Association for doing this joint series with me. If you guys aren't aware of the Colorado Technology Association, you should definitely check them out. They're doing incredible things for the state in terms of advocacy and community building that I think is important to take the state to the next level as a technology hub. They're online at coloradotechnologyassociation.org, and we'll get links out to them in the show notes. Now we've got a brief announcement from Franny, and then we'll get on to the interview with Pattie Money.
Colorado Technology Association is here to ensure that we have a thriving tech economy in Colorado. As we look forward into our digitized world, a strong tech community is critical in order for us to have a strong middle class. We're excited about this series and collaborating with Colorado TechCast to bring the voices of leaders in tech in our state. I think it's going to be a pretty exciting series and look forward to continuing.
Pattie, I think you said this best was, this has given us the permission to be vulnerable in ways that we've talked about, but we've never actually demonstrated.
Yeah. I think from a leadership perspective, it is one of the most humanizing things that's happened for leadership. There is, again, the leader that's got their kid that's come in and disrupted them, and the leader that, is talking about how hard it is for them to, have their whole schedules disrupted. And I think this has given us all permission to be vulnerable. And before, I think we all put on our happy face when we go to work for the most part. And now when you ask somebody, how's your day? It has more meaning. It has more depth. And when, when we ask our CEO that, how's your day? And he goes, you know what? It wasn't a great one. It's kind of a struggle today. Boy, that level of vulnerability, which you don't normally see from leadership, is creating a different way for us to relate with one another. I hope we never go back. I hope we will continue to demonstrate the fact that, no matter how high you go in an organization, you still have a life, you still have a family, you still have demands that are beyond what you do day in and day out at work. And for people to see that and know that side of your life just makes you that much more approachable, makes you that much more empathetic. I mean, makes people empathetic for leaders too. Like we expect leaders to be empathetic to other people that they lead, but we also, leaders need empathy as well. And so you create that dynamic when all parties are being vulnerable with each other. And I'm seeing that happen through this time period.
Have you seen this as an evolution up until this point, or is this just like a big bang and suddenly,
I think, well, again, I think we've all been talking about vulnerable leadership, making certain that, servant leadership is a very vulnerable leadership style. But I don't know that with this, that we've done it very well. This has been a forcing function. It has just plopped us all into a very different environment where you can't control everything versus in the office. You can control your schedule and determine who's going to be disrupting you at any given time for the most part if you're in a senior leadership role. But here, all bets are off. People's dogs are barking. All of a sudden there's a cat walking across the computer. All of those things are the things that we're seeing day in and day out. And they're just very relatable. And I think when you're relatable, you become a better leader because people feel like they can talk with you more openly. Boy, if they're experiencing, it's okay for me to experience these things. So I think that level of, relatability is actually what we're seeing right now, but it comes from people really being vulnerable with each other.
I think that, one of your 4 H's from SendGrid, honesty. I think that there's a level of honesty that's just flat out required right now.
Yes.
You set your strategy and say, this is the direction we're going to go. And then a week later, you're going to have all this different information that's going to change that. And you go, okay. And as a leader, it kind of makes you vulnerable doing that.
Yeah. I mean, again, you don't have all the answers.
Right.
Like you said, when are we going to go back into the office? I don't know. We don't know. It's not within our control. So
what does it look like?
Yeah. And when we do, what does it look like? So yeah, I think it's a time period where we're all figuring things out on the fly. And it's real time and it's not perfect. And sometimes it's a little messy, but even messiness is very endearing at times when you see your leaders sort of working through that in real time. Again, I think it's very humanizing and allows people to kind of talk with each other in a very different way.
Yeah, I like the relatable piece that you mentioned. It's one thing to say it, but when you can actually demonstrate we're all in the same boat together, we're all scared, we're all concerned, I think that goes a long way with instilling faith in leadership.
Yeah, and the question is, how do we bring this beyond the crisis? So how do we get past this crisis and let this be a new way for us to be speaking and talking and working with one another? Boy, if we can do that, I think we'll truly revolutionize, work and the meaning of work in some incredible ways.
Yeah, I would agree. I find it very interesting to see people go through. And I mean, quite frankly, a lot of us are going through a grieving process.
Yeah.
And you might be a little edgy one day, you might be just a little down the next day. And yet, you have to recognize it and, don't tuck it under because it's going to come back if you do that. And yet you've got to perform.
Yeah. I know last week I was talking to somebody on the phone and I could just tell I was a little ticky. And I was just like, ooh, sorry, I think I'm just irritable today. And they're like, alrighty then. But there's forgiveness when you can recognize it and say, you know what, I'm sorry, I don't mean to come across that way. And I think we're also more aware of how we're talking with people because we're concerned about one another during this time. So if we're not showing up as our best selves, I think we worry about, is that impacting my teammate? Is that having a negative impact on them? So I think we have heightened sensitivity for how we're relating to one another right now. That's also incredibly helpful.
Yeah, I agree.
How are you guys dealing with this? You're 3,000 employees worldwide now. It's a fair number of people have to quickly relocate.
Yeah, so that was an incredible experience, quite frankly. So we had been dealing with the shutdowns of our worldwide offices kind of on a one-off basis. Like things happened in Singapore, they happened in Japan, and all of a sudden we said, okay, we got to close down this office, do a deep clean, we'll be closed for 14 days and then we'll come back, etc. So we were dealing with it on a office by office basis. And then it just became very clear that we needed to do something more more deliberate, instead of like waiting for something to happen. How do we actually address it before we actually had a case within our offices? So we made the decision on, we closed the offices by end of business on the 13th of March. We made the decision like Tuesday of that week. And so we told everybody on Wednesday, and literally within a couple of days, we said, okay, everybody get ready. Now, we'd already had a strong work from home advisory, feel free to do that, et cetera. But, it was a big change for a lot of people. And at first it seemed like this would be kind of okay. We can manage this. We're a tech company, et cetera. And then when schools and daycares closed down, it changed the equation for so many people.
For a long time too.
Oh my gosh, yes. And so people are trying to juggle, homeschooling children, caring for small children, trying to work at the same time. So, we've tried to be incredibly supportive, just like all companies are right now. It's like, well, let's figure out a schedule that works for you. When do you need to be with your kids? When can you work? How do we actually make certain that we're supportive of you during this time period as well, so that you can meet those conflicting priorities, because they don't always come together in a way that works. And so, I think that's one of the things that we found. The original plan was like, we'll give everybody a work from home guide and this will all be fine. And then you turn around and you throw 3 kids into the equation, or people that, live in a small place and their spouse or their significant other is trying to work and you don't have a place to actually work. So just those conflicting demands for both space and time and all of that made this so much more difficult than I think any of us had originally anticipated. So helping people manage through the stress of that, I think, is one of the big challenges for us as a leadership team. How do you give people permission and space to manage what they need to during a time of crisis, while also maintaining business continuity and making certain that your customers are being served, and balancing the needs of the business against the humanitarian needs that are required for your workforce at this point in time. So I think that's the great juggling act that all of us are trying to do well right now.
I feel a sense of pride with it. I'm hearing that on people saying, this is really tough, but we're figuring it out. We got a whiteboard. My wife has to do this going on at this time. I'm going to take care of the kids. Yeah. I'm doing this and she's going to take care of the kids, and kids with timers. I had that this morning. The little kid just running in because our meeting had gone over and they had a timer set.
Yeah, people are figuring it out. And that's what's so great about the human spirit and the resiliency that you actually see with all the people. It's like, we are creative, smart, ingenious human beings, and people are figuring it out. And for the most part, that's true. But there's also people that are really struggling during this time period. And it's a time of great stress. It can exacerbate mental health issues that people may have. And so being aware of those things and trying to find the best way to support people through those situations as well, when sometimes it's not as easy, I think is another area of focus for many companies right now, including Twilio. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Humanizing the workforce is really cool. And Friday, I like the kid with the timer, because it's like 5 o'clock. And they're banging on the door like, Dad, are you done with work yet? It's 5 o'clock.
Oh, and I've cooked many a dinner while being on a conference call where you're waiting your turn and you're cooking dinner and your kids are doing the homework at the counter. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I worked out of my house for 18 years and it was the normal for my girls.
Yes.
Yeah.
They'd come in from school. If I was on the phone, they'd check to see if I was on a mute button.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Franny, your organization, or your former organization, I should say, is not new to remote.
Yeah, I started with IBM in 2000, and it was work from home then. There's an element that has been very interesting with that. You'd work with somebody for 2 or 3 years and never have met them. And at the time, we didn't have video. And so you'd meet them at a conference, and it was like a family reunion. You were so excited to actually see him as a human being because you knew him so well.
I used to have that, and then I would always like, you don't look like what I pictured you looking.
That's exactly right.
oh, that was not the vision I had in my head.
That's exactly right. It's really interesting because it deconstructs a human being and you get just a portion of them in one way or another. So we just talked about how this work from home makes everybody more of that holistic person. And yet we may not see their whole, like, you don't know if I'm wearing workout pants or not.
Well, we're seeing a spike of top sales, but not bottom sales.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I think Zoom has actually, created that whole link that was, and Google Hangouts and all the other technology that's out there that allows us to actually see each other easily and in a very cost-effective way. So I think that has created that link. And I'm finding people be incredibly hungry for that time too. Some of us have Zoom fatigue because we're on it all the time. And others are like, can we just have a Zoom virtual lunch, so we can all, and talk and do that kind of stuff. Can we, just have virtual coffee hours? And, I don't know about the number of happy hours that are out there, but there's a lot of them going around, right?
Yeah, there are.
Because that's our way of making those connections, and just to be able to see people and, feel that sense of connection with folks, I think is super, super helpful. So even though for me, because I've been working for a long time, it used to be just phone and I didn't see people, that addition of the visualization is super cool. And we've been encouraging everybody to keep their cameras on. Doesn't matter if you don't look great or you don't like your hair that day or whatever, better to see each other and to connect than it is to just be hearing a voice.
Yeah.
That kind of pivots me in a bizarre direction, but the other thing that I look at on this is that, I was taught, you kind of snap the line and you go to work in the morning at a particular time, and it's kind of ritualistic, and that you put your makeup on, you comb your hair, you show up like you're ready to work. Mm-hmm. And that is a ritual. Can you talk to me about what you think about rituals in general, and then rituals culturally in an organization?
Yeah, so I love rituals. So, I love family rituals. I love traditions and things like that. I think they're very, they're very important for connections too, and for managing expectations. So if you have rituals that you go through, they sort of set you up for a certain type of expectation, whether it's for your family Thanksgiving, and here's the rituals that we all do, and you know what to expect and you're ready for it, or whether it's work related. So I think it creates some psychological safety for people when you have rituals at work and things that people can understand. Oh, here's how we do things. This is how we connect. This is how we get stuff done. And so it allows them to live into those expectations and also to understand those expectations. Because I don't know about y'all, but if you've ever had a manager that was constantly surprising you, it was not fun. Like, okay, one time we do it this way and now we do it another way. So having some rituals and ways of getting things done, I think really helps people be more successful. Again, allowing them a lot of freedom and flexibility within those things as well, that autonomy that's needed for job ownership, et cetera. But again, to understand this is how we do things and how we work together is I think helpful, and I think it accelerates people's success.
I agree. Yeah. And I think it lowers stress.
I do. Yeah, again, you know what to expect. It's like, okay, so that's how that works. Got it. Now, if you change it every day, then that creates more stress. And so I think that's why, those, whether we call them rituals or, values that drive an organization or those things, I just think they really help people understand what to expect and feel safe, that, and again, psychological safety is a huge key to people being able to be really productive and to love their work. And so by doing that, we create that safety for people.
Pattie, one of the things I heard you touch on in another podcast was using people operations to fuel growth. I think you're primed now, unlike any other time in our recent history, to actually use people operations to empower the business. Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think the people function in organizations is the greatest lever that organizations have for success. Yeah. I'm in the field, so I believe that. So I may be slightly biased, but what I believe is that, and what I do know to be true, is that no matter what happens with an organization, it's fueled by people. So whether it's that genius idea that you're able to take to market and make millions of dollars with, whether it's a new process or system, whether it's somebody writing code, whether it's somebody greeting your customers as they walk in the door, all of those things are part of your business success. So how do you, when the business is planning to go a certain direction, how do you organize and enable the workforce to be able to move in that direction so that they can support the business and actually help live into the work that needs to be done at that moment in time? So really good HR leaders, I believe they understand the business strategy. They can pivot quickly when business strategies change, like even thinking about, right this minute in our country and company's history, the ability for us to quickly be able to say, oh, we were doing this. The organization is now going here. We have got to support that so that people can get into a new environment and be productive quickly. And feel good about it. Not just like go do your work, but also go feel good about doing your work. Feel good about being supported by the organization as you make this very quick shift. So by fueling people and enabling them for the work that needs to be done at that moment and even for future moments, I think that's how we drive organizational success. Mm-hmm. And it's really putting those puzzle pieces together to be able to say, if the organization is going here, what's going to be required from a people strategy in order for us to succeed? Because the only way it gets done is through people. That's it. So, what are the things that we need to create and be prepared for so that we can achieve those goals? And if we do that, I think it's a pretty magical thing.
Like that.
I think we as leaders have an obligation right now to take what we're learning through this moment and really bring it into the next phase of our organizations as we return to work. What are these lessons learned? And how do we actually make certain that the things that we learned about how to work together stay real and alive, and that we enable those even as we go back into a more routine way of working? And that is my hope for our workforces, that because there's a lot of stress and a lot of strain and a lot of worry and all of those things, but there's also a lot of really good stuff happening right now that we need to take and learn from. So I just hope that happens. So that's all I'd say on that.
I'm optimistic that it is going to happen, Patty. My mom used to say, you're merely acquaintances until you've gone through something together, and then you're friends.
Yeah.
And I think people are going to crave that. I mean, I certainly crave it with our team, that I feel like we're all going through this together, and it's relationships.
Isn't that always the case?
Yeah, it is. It's the connections. It's the human
connections that make us, I mean, even when you think about retention, I mean, half the reason people stay in an organization is the relationships that they have. They may love the company, but if they love their teams and the people that they work with and all of that, talk about sticky. That is the most important thing we can do for retention, I believe.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And what's the worst thing that happened? Why do people leave?
Well, I mean, there's a combination of things, but we also know it's managers and bad managers. And so enabling great leadership is also, like, when we think about how do you drive organizational success, how does the people team actually drive organizational success? Part of it is through manager enablement and making certain that managers are really, really equipped to be able to lead people at the right level. Because if they do it, I mean, first of all, the people team can't do all that work. We can help create the people strategies to support it. We can do that. But the people that make that come alive are the managers that are part of that person's life day in and day out. And so equipping them and helping them be able to lead effectively is one of the greatest things you can do to drive organizational success.
Yep, absolutely. Patty, I appreciate you coming on the show today, joining us on Colorado TechCast. For those listeners who are not familiar with either Twilio or SendGrid, why don't you give us a high-level overview and then tell us how we can find more information about you?
So both Twilio and SendGrid are a customer communication platform, and we actually really fuel our customers' success through communication with their clients. So everything from emails that, think about the Uber receipt that you get when you've taken an Uber that just shows up in your inbox. That's fueled by our technology. SMS texts that you get confirming different things. Twilio fuels hotlines and things like that, the emergency response, things that allow information to be received quickly and effectively by the people that actually need that information. So we fuel communication, primarily customer communication, the people that want the information that you need to provide. So that's who we are. We're a fast-growing technology company. We're a values-driven organization that cares deeply about people, about our communities as well. We have a wonderful organization called Twilio.org that is really about giving back to the communities that we're a part of. So not only do we want to be an amazingly successful company in terms of our business and day-to-day, we also want to be amazingly successful in terms of how we support the communities where we work and live. So it's an amazing company. It's a great place to work. It's got some amazing people that I love getting arm in arm with every day to see what work we need to get done and to do it together. So it's a company that I'm very proud to be a part of, and that has been continuing to grow fast. So there's plenty of opportunities if you're looking for a place to come and call home and to grow your career.
And where can people find you online?
Twilio.com.
Twilio.com. All right, we will get links to that in the show notes, as well as Twilio.org for those interested in that aspect of it. So that brings us to the end of this interview. If you enjoyed it, give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps promote us and get the word out there of what's going on in Colorado. Visit our website at coloradotechcast.com. There you can catch a bunch of other great interviews that we've done with links to community resources and other helpful links. And if you're not yet a member of CTA, they're a great organization, and you'll find tremendous value in the community that they're cultivating. So head on over to their website at coloradotechnology.org. I'm Trapper Little, and I'll catch you again on the next episode of Colorado TechCast.